Yes. We'll go on.
Counts 17 to 20. Wanton destruction, plunder of public or private property. From the 1st of August 1991 until May 1992, Slobodan Milošević, acting alone or in concert with other known and unknown members of the joint criminal enterprise, planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of the wanton destruction and plunder of the public and private property of the Croat and other non-Serb population within the territories of the SAO SBWS, the SAO Western Slavonia, and the SAO Krajina, although these actions were not justified by military necessity. This intentional and wanton destruction and plunder included the plunder and destruction of homes and religious and cultural buildings, and took place in the following towns and villages: the SAO SBWS from August until October 1991, the towns and villages Dalj, Čelija, Vukovar, Erdut, Lovas, Šarengrad, Bapska, and Tovarnik. The SAO Western Slavonia from August to December 1991, the town of Vocin. The SAO Krajina from August to December 1991, the towns and villages Saborsko, Škabrnja, Nadin, and Bruška. By these acts and omissions, Slobodan Milošević committed: Count 17. Extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly, a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 2d and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 18. Wanton destruction of villages or devastation not justified by military necessity, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3b and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 19. Destruction or willful damage done to institutions dedicated to education or religion, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3d and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 20. Plunder of public or private property, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3e and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Dubrovnik. Counts 21 to 27. Murder, willful killing, willfully causing great suffering, cruel treatment, attacks on civilians. From the 1st of October 1991 until the 7th of December 1991, Slobodan Milošević, acting alone or in concert with other known and unknown members of the joint criminal enterprise, planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of a military campaign directed at the city of Dubrovnik and its surroundings in order to achieve the forcible removal of its non-Serb population. In this time period, Serb forces, comprised of JNA land, air, and naval units, as well as TO, or volunteer units, and special police units from Serbia and Montenegro, subordinated to the JNA and under the effective control of Slobodan Milošević and other members of the joint criminal enterprise, in particular Momir Bulatović, launched an extensive military attack on the coastal regions of Croatia between the town of Neum, Bosnia-Herzegovina in the northwest, and the Montenegrin border in the southeast. It was the objective of the Serb forces to detach this area from Croatia and to annex it to Montenegro. While the Serb forces seized the territory to the southeast and northwest of the city of Dubrovnik within 2 weeks, the city itself was under attack throughout the time alleged in this indictment. During an unlawful extensive shelling campaign conducted from high ground east and north of Dubrovnik, with an unobstructed view of the city and its environs, and from JNA naval vessels offshore, 43 Croat civilians were killed and numerous others wounded. The shelling incidents and the names of the killed civilians are set out in Annex 2 attached to this indictment. By these acts and omissions, Slobodan Milosevic committed Count 21, murder, a crime against humanity, punishable under Articles 5A and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 22, willful killing, a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 2A and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 23, murder, a violation of the laws or customs of war, as recognized by Common Article 3.1a of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 3 and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 24, inhumane acts, a crime against humanity, punishable under Articles 5I and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 25, willfully causing great suffering, a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 2C and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 26, cruel treatment, a violation of the laws or customs of war, as recognized by Common Article 3.1a of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 3 and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 27, attacks on civilians, a violation of the laws or customs of war, as recognized by Article 51.2 of Additional Protocol 1 and Article 13.2 of Additional Protocol 2 to the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 3 and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Counts 28 to 32, wanton destruction, plunder of public or private property. From the 1st of October 1991 until the 7th of December 1991, during this same shelling attack, Slobodan Milosevic, acting alone or in concert with other known and unknown members of the joint criminal enterprise, planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, and execution of the wanton destruction or willful damage and plunder of the public and private property of the Croat and other non-Serb population within the area of the Dubrovnik Republic. This campaign included the destruction, damage, or plunder of homes, religious, historical, and cultural buildings, and other civilian public or private buildings not justified by military necessity. During this shelling campaign, approximately 1,000 shells fired by the Serb forces impacted on the Old Town area of the city. The Old Town district of Dubrovnik was an UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site in its entirety. A number of the buildings in the Old Town and the towers on the city walls were marked with the symbols mandated by the Hague Convention on the Protection of Cultural Property in the event of armed conflict, dating back to 1954. No military targets were located on or within the walls of the Old Town. During the shelling on the 8th to the 13th of November 1991 of the city of Dubrovnik, buildings in the Old Town were damaged, as well as hotels, housing refugees and other civilian structures in other parts of the city. During the shelling On the 6th of December 1991 of the city of Dubrovnik, at least 6 buildings in the old town were destroyed in their entirety and hundreds more suffered damage. Hotels, housing refugees, and other civilian structures were severely damaged or destroyed in other parts of Dubrovnik, specifically in the Lapad and Babinkuk areas. In October 1991, the Serb forces took control of the Croatian towns and villages Konavle, Župa Dubrovačka, and Primorje in the proximity of the city of Dubrovnik. In the aftermath of this takeover from the 2nd to the 24th of October 1991, JNA troops systematically plundered public, commercial, and private property in the towns and villages Brgat, Čilipi, Dubravka, Gruda, Močići, Osojnik, Slano, Donja Ljuta, Popovići, Mihanići, Drivenik, Konavle, Plat, Čepikuće, Uskoplje, Gabrili, Pridvoje, Molunat, Donja Čibača, Karasovići, and Zvekovica. Much of this property was transported to Montenegro in JNA military vehicles. The JNA thereafter instituted measures to track and maintain the looted property. JNA troops also systematically destroyed public, commercial, and religious buildings, as well as private dwellings in the above-listed towns and villages. This destruction took place after the cessation of fighting, when the areas were securely under the control of the JNA. By these acts and omissions, Slobodan Milosevic committed Count 28, extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly, a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions of 1949, punishable under Articles 2D and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 29, wanton destruction of villages or devastation not justified by military necessity, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3b and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 30, destruction or willful damage done to historic monuments and institutions dedicated to education or religion, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3d and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 31, plunder of public or private property, a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Articles 3e and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. Count 32, unlawful attacks on civilian objects, a violation of the laws or customs of war, as recognized by Article 52.1 of Additional Protocol 1 to the Geneva Conventions of 1949, and customary law, punishable under Articles 3 and 7.1 and 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. General allegations. All acts and omissions alleged in this indictment between the 1st of August 1991 and June 1992 occurred on the territory of the former Yugoslavia. Between at least the 1st of August 1991 and at least June 1992, a state of armed conflict existed in Croatia. Until the 7th of October 1991, this armed conflict was internal in nature. From the 8th of October 1991, an international armed conflict and partial occupation existed in the Republic of Croatia. All acts and omissions charged as grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions of 1949 occurred during the international armed conflict and partial occupation of Croatia. At all times relevant to this indictment, the victims of grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions of 1949 were persons protected under the provisions of the relevant Geneva Conventions. All acts and omissions charged relative to the destruction of property as grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions of 1949 involved protected property under the relevant provisions of the Geneva Conventions. At all times relevant to this indictment, Slobodan Milošević was required to abide by the laws and customs governing the conduct of armed conflicts, including the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and the additional protocols thereto. All acts and omissions charged as crimes against humanity were part of a widespread and systematic attack directed against the Croat and other non-Serb civilian population of large areas of Croatia.
Additional facts. The Republic of Croatia, formerly one of the 6 republics of the SFRY, is located in southeastern Europe and borders Slovenia and Hungary to the north and northeast, and the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and Bosnia and Herzegovina to the east and south. The territories of the SAO SBWS, the SAO Western Slavonia, the SAO Krajina, and the Dubrovnik Republic are indicated in the attached Annex 3. In the 1991 census, the population of the Republic of Croatia was 4,784,265, of which 3,736,356, or 78.1%, were Croats, 581,663, or 12.2%, were Serbs, 43,469, or 0.9%, were Muslims, 22,355, or 0.5%, were Hungarians, 106,041, or 2.2%, were Yugoslavs, and 294,381, or 6.1%, were others or undeclared. In April and May 1990, the Republic of Croatia held elections in which the Croatian Democratic Union, the HDZ, won a plurality of votes and secured a majority of seats in the Croatian Sabor, or parliament. The new Sabor then elected the HDZ candidate Franjo Tuđman president of Croatia. In advance of the 1990 elections, the nationalistic Serbian Democratic Party was founded in Knin, advocating the autonomy and later secession of predominantly Serb areas from Croatia. Between the 19th of August and the 2nd of September 1990, Croatian Serbs held a referendum on the issue of Serb sovereignty and autonomy in Croatia. The vote took place in predominantly Serb areas of Croatia and was limited only to Serb voters. Croats who lived in the affected region were barred from participating in the referendum. The result of the vote was overwhelmingly in support of Serb autonomy. On the 30th of September 1990, the Serbian National Council, presided over by Milan Babić, declared the autonomy of the Serbian people on ethnic and historic territories on which he lives and which are within the current boundaries of the Republic of Croatia as a federal unit of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. On the 21st of December 1990, Croatian Serbs in Knin announced the creation of a Serbian Autonomous District and declared their independence from Croatia. Conflicts between Serbs and Croatian police forces erupted throughout the spring of 1991. In March 1991, the conflict intensified when Serb police forces attempted to consolidate power over areas with significant Serb populations. The Serb police, headed by Milan Martić, took control of a police station in Pakrac and battles erupted when the Croatian government attempted to re-establish its authority in the area. At Plitvice, a bus carrying Croatian policemen was attacked by Serbs, and another battle erupted. The JNA deployed troops in the area and issued an ultimatum to the Croatian police to withdraw from Plitvice. In March 1991, the collective federal presidency of the SFRY reached a deadlock on several issues, including the issue of instituting a state of emergency in Yugoslavia. The representatives on the presidency from the Republic of Serbia, the Republic of Montenegro, the Autonomous Province of Vojvodina, and the Autonomous Province of Kosovo and Metohija all resigned from their posts. In a televised address on the 16th of March 1991, Slobodan Milošević, in his capacity as President of the Republic of Serbia, declared that Yugoslavia was finished and that Serbia would no longer be bound by decisions of the federal presidency. On the 19th of May 1991, Croatia held a referendum in which the electorate voted overwhelmingly for independence from the SFRY. On the 25th of June 1991, Croatia and the Republic of Slovenia declared their independence from Yugoslavia. On the 25th of June 1991, the JNA moved to suppress Slovenia's secession. The European community sought to mediate in the conflict. On the 8th of July 1991, an agreement was reached that Croatia and Slovenia would suspend implementation of their independence for 90 days until the 8th of October 1991. The European community ultimately recognized Croatia as an independent state on the 15th of January 1992, and Croatia became a member of the United Nations on the 22nd of May 1992. On the 18th of July 1991, the Federal Presidency, with the support of the Serbian and Montenegrin governments and General Veljko Kadijević, voted to withdraw the JNA from Slovenia, thereby acceding to its secession and the dissolution of the SFRY. Slobodan Milošević's calls for the union of all Serbs in one state coincided with those agitating for the creation of a Greater Serbia. The Serbs in the Knin Krajina region in eastern Slavonia and in western Slavonia began receiving increasing support from the government of the Republic of Serbia. By August 1991, Serb volunteer and police forces in these regions were being supplied and led by officials of the Republic of Serbia Ministry of Internal Affairs. In the Knin area, the JNA forces began openly assisting the Serb police forces led by Milan Martic. They participated jointly in an attack on the Croatian village of Kijevo in August 1991. Throughout August and September 1991, substantial areas of Croatia came under Serb control as a result of actions by Serb military, volunteer, and police forces conducted with the support of the JNA. In the Serb-occupied regions of northern Dalmatia, Lika, Kordun, Banja, Western Slavonia, and Baranja, the Croatian and other non-Serb population was systematically driven out, and the areas were incorporated into various Serbian Autonomous Districts. The JNA remained deployed in the areas where the Serb insurgents had taken control, thereby securing their gains. In August 1991, the JNA undertook operations against towns in eastern Slavonia, resulting in their occupation by JNA and other Serb forces. The Croat and other non-Serb population of these areas was forcibly expelled. In late August, the JNA laid siege to the city of Vukovar. By mid-October 1991, all other predominantly Croat towns in eastern Slavonia had been taken by Serb forces except Vukovar. Non-Serbs were subjected to a brutal occupation regime consisting of persecution, murder, torture, and other acts of violence. Almost all of the non-Serb population was eventually killed or forced from the occupied areas. The siege of Vukovar continued until the 18th of November 1991, when the city fell to the Serb forces. During the course of the 3-month siege, the city was largely destroyed by JNA shelling, and hundreds of persons were killed. When the JNA, that is Serb forces, occupied the city, hundreds more Croats were killed by Serb troops. The non-Serb population of the city was expelled within days of its fall under Serb control. In Geneva, on the 23rd of November 1991, Slobodan Milošević, the Federal Secretary of National Defense Veljko Kadijević, and Franjo Tuđman entered into an agreement signed under the auspices of the United Nations Special Envoy Cyrus Vance. This agreement called for the lifting of blockades by Croatian forces on JNA barracks and for the withdrawal of JNA forces from Croatia. Both sides committed themselves to an immediate ceasefire throughout Croatia by units under their command, control, or political influence, and further bound themselves to ensure that any paramilitary or irregular units associated with their forces would also observe the ceasefire. On the 3rd of January 1992, another ceasefire agreement was signed by Franjo Tuđman and Slobodan Milošević, paving the way for the implementation of the United Nations peace plan put forward by Cyrus Vance. Under the Vance plan, 4 United Nations protected areas were established in the areas occupied by Serb forces. The Vance plan called for the withdrawal of the JNA from Croatia and for the return of displaced persons to their homes in the United Nations protected areas. Although the JNA officially withdrew from Croatia in May 1992, large portions of its weaponry and personnel remained in the Serb-held areas and were turned over to the police of the Republic of Serbian Krajina. Displaced persons were not allowed to return to their homes, and those few Croats and other non-Serbs who had remained in the Serb-occupied areas were expelled in the following months. The territory of the RSK remained under Serb occupation until large portions of it were retaken by Croatian forces in 2 operations in 1995. The remaining area of Serb control in eastern Slavonia was peacefully reintegrated into Croatia in 1998. The SFRY existed as a sovereign state until the 27th of April 1992, when the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia was adopted, replacing the Constitution of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia of 1974.
Thank you. Slobodan Milosevic, the time has now come for you to enter pleas to this indictment. I will put the counts to you. Kindly confine your answers to guilty or not guilty to each count. If you don't, we shall simply enter a plea on your behalf. Count 1. Count 1. Persecution on political, racial and religious grounds, a crime against humanity, punishable under Articles 5H and 7 of the Statute of the Tribunal. How do you plead to that, guilty or not guilty?
This indictment is the second act of the crime committed against my people because the victim is proclaimed as the culprit to protect the real culprits for the crimes against Yugoslavia. It is absurd to accuse Serbia and the Serbs for the armed secession of Croatia, which provoked a civil war, conflicts and suffering of the civilian population. The indictment, in fact, denied the late Croatian leader Franjo Tuđman, who in his message to the Croatian people said,
Milosevic, we made the position clear. This is not the time for speeches. It's a time for you to enter a plea. You haven't done so, and your failure means that the tribunal will enter pleas on your behalf. There will be pleas of not guilty entered on every count of this indictment. We now adjourn until 9:30 tomorrow morning.